It is the Shane Queen Coaches Show. I'm Brian Giffen. He's Shane Queen, and we're thrilled to be back as the Warriors come off of a bye week. And prior to that bye week, Coach, a 21-7 win over Milton that was a big one. And as we talked about a little bit ago, before the cameras came on, the best four-quarter, 48-minute, three-phase game you guys have played so far this year. And obviously that bodes very well now as we sit here on the cusp of region play.
Yeah, anytime you can go into a game and you defer, the defense goes out, gets a stop, you get the ball back, and then you have a 73-yard touchdown run. You start off 7-0. That kind of gets us going in the flow of the game. And we've talked to our players because the first three games we were behind at halftime. We were fighting, clawing, the whole game. So we wanted a fast start, and that's what we were able to do against Milton on Friday night.
And always, every coach always seeks the fast start. Obviously, that's you want to get out in front, and it's always easier to play with a lead. I would submit also, especially when you run the ball and play good defense. But the fast start maybe matters that much more in the situation that you're in, where you continue to bring along a very promising quarterback who's your two guy, really in the overall sense in terms of the roster. But he has played better and better and better. And it not only set a great tone for your team going into this game against a very tough opponent, but I think it set a very good tone for him also to help him just let's get into the game plan, let's do this. And he seems to be emerging more and more in that leadership role that you need back there, regardless of what jersey number the guy's wearing.
Definitely. Coach Clark's done a good job always preparing our quarterbacks, but we've had seems like a trend here at North Cobb. We have a starting quarterback, they go down, the next guy just steps up, and you talk about next man up, but sometimes that guy's not ready, and Nick's done a great job of preparing each week, knowing what the defense is giving him. He's not turning the ball over, he's taking care of the ball, but then he's also contributing last week with his legs, and that's something Malachi did for us, so he's bringing more of that to the game, and it's making us a better football team.
Well, you finished the non-region portion of your schedule 3-2. All of us knew what a grinding gauntlet of a schedule in non-region games you had. And it's not going to get any easier. Not only are you going into region play against a very tough opponent, but in the overall sense, and we'll get into Walton a little bit more, in the overall sense, though, you look around the region and the way a lot of these teams in the region are playing, it's going to be a continued gauntlet all the way through.
Well, you sit there, the surprise of the regions, Osborne at 5-0. You got Kennesaw Mountain 5-0, Caleb Carmine doing a great job over there. Of course, Walton 4-1, and us sitting there at 3-2. But every coach in our region's telling their kids the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're 5-0 right now or 0-5. It's a new season. If you're 5-0, no one cares what you did the first 5 games. If you're 0-5, hey, we still got a chance.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I think that's one of the formulas that's great for the high school level here, because you can get off to a tough start. You might have things not go your way injury-wise, one thing or the other. But the region formula, you've still got a chance to right the ship, save your season, and go on and do special things. And I think this is a great facet of Georgia football.
Well, I tell our kids all the time, a couple years ago, Marietta was 1-2 after 3 games. 2019 and 2018, Milton was 1-2. Both teams go on to win a state championship because they played tough schedules early. It prepared for them for the region. They got home playoff games to start the playoffs, and then they made a run because they were playing their best football once they reached playoff time.
By the way, we remind you the Shane Queen Coaches Show is presented by Freedom Church. Couldn't do this without them. And, of course, our previous formula, and one we'll still use from time to time, is to do it on location and stream this show live at Main Street Events by 1885 Grill. Schedules don't always allow for us to facilitate it that way, but we will still have the opportunity, we hope, to do that on a couple of occasions as the season winds along and as we get closer to, how the region's going to shake out and what the postseason might look like and all of that. But special shout-outs, of course, to Freedom Church, and another to 1885 Grill. They've done fantastic things and continue to for the North Cobb program, and we appreciate them very much. Somebody else we appreciate a whole lot is Bay Equity and our friend Jay White. And it's time now for our Big Play Breakdown segment, which is presented by Bay Equity. And Coach, we talked about the way that you guys opened the game with Nick taking the long run, the 73 yards for a touchdown. Let's take a look at that video now, and I can have you break this down a little bit.
Well, we challenged our offensive line all week, and those three guys on the right side, starting with the center, Blake Ellsworth, Marcel Felton, and Grigsby. You see the great combination block on those two, get the guy on the ground. And I don't think Milton was prepared for this, so we didn't run Nick the first week and kind of getting his feet wet. But a great way to start the game. And, obviously as quarterback, you get your juices flowing, you score a big touchdown, and it hopefully carries over the rest of the game, and it did with him. But, again, you see his speed. He gets out in the open, and great blocking downfield by our wide receivers. And obviously you've got to have all 11 guys making great plays, and that's what happened on that play.
And when you have a considerable number of weapons, which you guys certainly do, it just makes the dynamic quarterback that is a threat himself to take the ball down, as we've seen the last couple of years. It adds so much because it's just one more component a defense has to account for and a coach has to game plan for.
Anytime you have to defend 11 guys instead of 10, I would much rather play a team that quarterback's going to hand the ball off and stand there, and you got to defend 10 instead of – it's the old option thing where you've got to be disciplined and play your role, or there's a touchdown like that one right there.
We talk so much about weapons, and rightly so, and how dangerous this offense is for teams to try to defend. But the defense has really held the rope for you all year long. You look back to that Buford game where you spot them, the early lead, and here pressure mattered, and you got pressure all night.
Well, Coach Inghold does a good job dialing up blitzes and stuff, and this is a great one here. We call a corner blitz, and a lot of times quarterbacks aren't prepared for that. And it's hard to account for that in the box because you don't see that guy coming off the edge. And Philip Gladney does a good job right here. This is a big sack. They're on our side of the 50, and this put them behind the chain. So great job by the defense there.
And following the theme of how the defense has played, one guy in particular who's been a ball hawk, not just this year, but he's been a ball hawk over the years, has been Jordan Lonis. I've nicknamed him the playmaker on our radio broadcast because there are plays made in that secondary. There are fumbles that are falling on, forced this and that, picks. And Jordan Lonis seems to always be around the ball somewhere back there. No exception on this pick here.
Yeah, Jordan's playing very well for us right here. And again, he comes up with interceptions. I think he's got 4 in 5 games, but he is always around the ball. He plays fast. He plays physical. He's a great combination of size and speed, but again, does a great job coming off the hash mark right there and intercepting, gets a big turnover for us right there.
We move to the second half here in our highlight package, and Nick Grimstead opened the game, first score of it anyway, a 73-yard run, and he shows off the legs again right here.
Again, the defensive end sits, he kind of chases the guy outside, and Nick pulls that ball down and gets about a 15 or 20-yard run.
Now, we talked about pressure, and again, when we get into this week's opponent, which is Walton, that's a heck of a way to open region play, but we'll get into that after a break here in a little while. But pressure is going to matter that much more this week, and I suspect it's safe to say pressure is going to matter a bunch down the stretch of the season, and you got good pressure right here. You know what? This is that sack.
Okay, first of all, we'll go to the touchdown run by David Eziomume. Again, we're down inside the 5, which we struggled the week before against Northside Warner Robins, finishing plays, and that's something we challenged our offense with this week, and to do a great job of getting movement up front, and David Eziomume powering it at home for a touchdown.
And now we can get to what we were talking about with pressure a minute ago.
Again, a great, you're in a situation where we got to get pressure on the quarterback. We kind of run a little delayed blitz right here, and Grayson Hodges comes free for the big sack for about a 10-yard loss.
And we talk about weapons, and, we've talked a lot about the game Nick Grimstead had. Ben Hall really emerged and was a huge player for you in this Milton game, and what a compliment between David Bedinga, who's been really good for you this year. You look back to the Marietta game, been very efficient in other games. Ben Hall had a huge game against Milton. David Eziomume, who scored the touchdown a couple moments ago in the highlight. Here, though, David Bedinga has a big run down to the 37.
Yeah, it bounces it inside. You see great vision here, but and has the number 3 there going to Clemson has a touchdown saving tackle. But I can't say enough about how Ben ran the football, how hard he ran the ball, and it's something that we know Ben's capable of. And he had a great week, man. I think he finished with right at 180 yards, and he's such a selfless person. You see him in the game. He goes over and gives the big play chain to our center, and he says thank you to his offensive line. He's just a very humble young man, hard-working young man, and that's why Michigan come all the way down to the south to pick up a guy like him. He's 225 pounds. He ran the football with violence Friday night, and we need him to continue doing that for us to be successful down the road.
Yeah, and that's an interesting dynamic with both of those running backs because they're not only explosive, they not only have breakaway type of speed once they get into the open, but both those guys are hard to tackle too. Yeah. You're not necessarily going to just bring, especially with a head of steam, you're not necessarily going to bring either one of those guys down with a solo tackle.
Both of them are so strong, and they're both such great young men, and they support each other. When one's on the field, you see they're cheering for their teammates, and they're happy. A lot of times somebody gets 180 yards, somebody gets 70. This guy who only got 70 got pouted up because he didn't get enough touches. But these guys support each other. They're great teammates to each other, and they feed off each other, and they help each other when they come off the field. What did you see? What do I need to do when I get back in the game? So both of those guys, Bedinga and Ben Hall, and then of course David Ezeomume, that's a 3-headed monster back there trying defense coordinators have to defend.
Yeah, we've talked about Nick, we've talked about Bedinga, and we've also talked about Ben Hall. You mentioned David Ezeomume. We saw one highlight earlier. Here's another one, a long run for David.
Watch how strong he is. Again, breaking an arm tackle by Clemson commit and then carrying guys 5 yards down the field. He power cleans over 300 pounds. He does a great job in the weight room, throws 2 guys on his back and gets 5 extra yards there.
As tough as it was when your starting quarterback goes down for a period of time, a lot of people initially, of course, are, oh my, what does this mean for the season? But you're still loaded with really, really good players. Your quarterback that you have in there is playing very well. There's no reason not to keep your expectations just as high as they were the day that you all reported to fall camp.
Well, we take pride in developing players here, and you've got to have the next guy. We always say you're turned ankle away from being the starter, so you got to prepare like you're number 1. So, because if you're not preparing throughout the season, then you're not going to be ready when that time comes. So, I'd like to say our coaching staff is one of the best in the state. Take me out of it. Our assistant coaches do a great job of preparing those guys, not just during the season. This is all off season, watching film, getting those guys ready, and Nick's a great example of why you have to do those things in the off season. But again, our expectations have not changed. Just to win the region championship, make a run in the playoffs, and hopefully get week 15 to still be playing.
And we talked about this one other time in closing thought here. This only bodes well for the future too, because 3 is a senior. We know he's going to be in Fayetteville next year, and you really are getting such meaningful reps and snaps now for the guy who's likely to be the one to assume that mantle, and that's going to matter a whole lot beyond just 2022 for North Cobb football.
Yeah, they always say your second season, the game starts slowing down for you because you start seeing things before the snap, especially as a quarterback. You get a pre-snap read, but everything changes once that ball snap. Do they rotate from a 2 to a 3? Who's blitzing? So those things you start picking up a little bit quicker, which allows you to play faster. And Nick, you're starting to see him do that some already because this will be his 3rd or 4th week starting.
This is the Shane Queen Coaches Show. It's presented by Freedom Church. Special shout out to our friends at 1885 Grill, as we love bringing you the Shane Queen Coaches Show and talking ball with you every week. Right here, we're going to take a time out. On the other side of it, we'll get into specifics about Walton, who provides pretty fierce opposition in the region opener and the next game on the schedule. That'll take place Friday. Want to remind you also that if you don't make it over to Walton, don't worry. You can follow the play-by-play and everything that happens in that game from over at Walton on our Mazda Mall of Georgia Warrior radio network. Pre-game coverage begins at 7 o'clock, and kickoff between your North Cobb Warriors and the Raiders will follow at 7:30, and that's a big one. We'll get into Walton. We'll get into a little bit more about Region 5 right after this timeout. Shane Queen Coaches Show returns right after this.
Hi, I'm Dr. Andrew Payne, owner and head doctor here at Lake City Chiropractic in beautiful downtown Ackworth. If you suffer from headaches, neck pain, back pain, or looking to start chiropractic care, I'd like to invite you to check out our office. As Ackworth and North Cobb's award-winning injury center, we treat whiplash injuries, herniated disc, and other spinal conditions from auto injuries every day. And as the official chiropractor of the North Cobb Warriors, we treat sports injuries every day. We would love to treat you and your family. Enjoy the game and go Warriors.
Deep fly ball to left, way back, it's gone!
This kid is killing me. He's definitely gonna get paid.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get a big check.
Dansby Swanson does it again, coming through in the clutch. He's gonna be cashing a big check.
Dansby, next time, you gotta use the mobile app. How did you even get that? You know what?
LGE, a smarter way to bank.
What's up, Warrior Nation? My name is J.R. Lee. I'm the lead pastor at Freedom Church, and I've got something incredible planned for you and your family throughout the month of October, so check this out.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you
Blockbuster Weekends is going to be absolutely incredible. So go ahead and do whatever it is you got to do. Make plans or change plans to be able to join us every single Sunday during the month of October. It's going to be an amazing series. And also go ahead and join us this week, every single Sunday, 9, 10, 15, or 11:45 a.m. Go Warriors.
And we're back on the Shane Queen Coaches Show, presented by Freedom Church. Special shout out again to our friends at 1885 Grill as well. It is North Cobb against Walton, opening Region 5 now, play for 2022. And Walton, coach, they're as good as advertised, and they've been advertised a lot. Walton is the one team in the region that had a game last week, and they continue to roll. Jeremy Heklinski is putting up ridiculous numbers down there at Walton. And we talked about this, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but Region 5, when you look at how the teams have fared so far this year, looks on paper and on video a lot more dangerous than a lot of these teams may have looked if you just judged them by what their record was last year. But this year is what matters, and this year is when you're playing.
Exactly. Great start. We've got a tough region schedule, and that's why we played the non-region schedule we did, so we would be ready for this. Back to Walton, you know, their offense, it goes through Jeremy Heklinski, a great talent. He can make all the throws. Last week alone against North Paulden, he was 22 for 29 for 406 yards and 6 touchdowns. Had 3 different receivers over 100 yards. So, again, a great challenge for us. A great challenge for our defense, but those guys have worked hard all week, and they'll be prepared Friday night.
Like you, they are loaded with, and you just alluded to it, not only Heklinski, but he's got plenty of options of where to distribute the football. And it goes back to the thing even that we talked about before you played the option team. You really are back in that needing to defend the whole field situation here against a team like this with that many weapons.
Yeah, he does a great job of spreading the ball to, like I said, 3 of his 4 receivers had over 100 yards receiving. And they've got a tailback that's 200 pounds, Macari Bodiford, that transferred in from McEacher, and that's a tough guy. He had over 100 yards rushing. So they got one of the best tight ends in the area, and Hunter Till, he's 225 pounds, a great tight end. So there's a lot of challenges for us on that side of the ball. And again, kind of goes back to defending 11 guys and being disciplined and making sure you're not peeking in the backfield. You're doing your job, and that's what Coach Shingholz challenged those guys all week to do.
This game screams the need, and you always preach this, but this game screams the need for the 3 phases, 48 minutes again. You look back at last year's game where we had that uncanny turn of events prior to halftime. I think you reeled off like 23 unanswered in something like a 2-3 minute span. And you thought you had the game put away. Lo and behold, you get into the third quarter, and there wasn't any quit in them. They got it back to a one-score game at one point, and you ended up outlasting Walton last year. But you certainly expect, again, the three-phase, 48-minute game to be important for 4 quarters.
Well, the difference in that game last year was our special teams. We returned two kicks, and we've got to do that again. We got to play well in the special teams. So if we can get some big returns, if we can limit what they do offensively, try to get off the field more times than not on third down, run the football to keep their offense on the side of the ball, that's going to be the key to victory Friday night.
So you come off of a bye week prior to region play, which is well-timed. How has it helped you from the standpoint of health? Everybody's beat and bruised up a little bit at this point of the season, but getting that bye week prior to region play to regroup and get guys ready to go. Let's talk a little about how helpful that is, and maybe how healthy you guys are going into this one.
Well, our off week couldn't come at a better time. Obviously, the week before region, and Walton played, and they got some guys banged up Friday night. So having that week off, getting people back like Quentin Agero, getting him healthier, David Bedinga, a little sore shoulder, getting him some few days off and not pounding him a little bit. And then a few guys, you're going to get turned ankles here, get bumps and bruises here. So we're pretty healthy. We're as healthy as we've been in a long time. So that off week was definitely very welcoming.
You had to be pretty buoyed by the fact that against Milton, not only did you play well, but you played well from the standpoint of the little things, too. There were a lot fewer mistakes. There were a lot fewer ill-timed penalties and things like that. And that's got to make you feel pretty confident going into region play if you can bottle that up and continue to pour that out every week.
Well, and that's what we try to tell our kids every week. We can't be our own worst enemy. We can't beat ourselves. And I thought we did a great job of that Friday night, playing well in all 3 phases of the game, not turning the ball over, not having penalties where you're playing behind the chains. Because in the game against Buford, we played behind the chains for the whole first half because of silly penalties. We had 2 turnovers in the first half. Against Northside Warner Robins, we didn't finish drives when we could have. So I felt like in those 2 losses, it was more what we didn't do than what our opponents did. And Friday night, we kind of imposed our will in the second half, running the football, taking over the run game, keeping their offense on the sidelines. And if we can have that great combination again this Friday night, it'll be a great night for the Warriors.
When we were in the highlight segment, we talked about the importance of getting pressure on an opposing quarterback, and it would appear more so maybe than any game this year. That's going to be an important priority, I think, Friday night against this guy. In other words, to not let him be comfortable in the pocket and or have enormous amounts of time to look down the field and try to pick you apart.
Well, you can do it in 2 ways, and we're going to give different looks, obviously, but when somebody runs RPO or they run timing patterns, they want to be 1, 2, 3, ball out, boom, ball. You can do it 1 of 2 ways. You can bring pressure, make him move in the pocket, or you can go man coverage and bang the wide receivers up and not let them get on their routes where he's expecting them to be at the times, and he has to hold on the ball a little bit longer, and you're able to get the sack. So we've got to give him different looks. We've got to get pressure on him. But what he does a great job of, if he gets outside the pocket, he keeps his eyes downfield, and he can extend plays. So a great quarterback. He's got our utmost respect, and we've got to play our A game to be able to beat Walton Friday night.
We'll get into the rest of Region 5 and in particular some of the teams that have played really well early in the season. But what do you see as we finish up on Walton here as the biggest keys for North Cobb in this one to improve to 4-2?
Well, the other night, North Paulding would go on 10-play drives and they would score, and Walton would go 4 plays, 75 yards. Here comes North Paulding, 12 plays, score, 5-play drive by Walton and score. So we've got to limit the big plays. We've got to hopefully get some sacks and put them behind the chain. And we've got to control the clock. And I don't care if we do it by throwing the ball or running the football. We've got to move the chains, keep that guy on the sidelines, and that's the best defense for a team like that, when you've got the football and he's standing on the sidelines. And then we've got to win the special team. If offense and defense are pretty much even, we've got to win the game in the kicking game, and I think that's somewhere where we can take advantage of.
And we'll get into this region stuff in a minute, but one last thing. You talked about Javi Morales a little bit ago, and he was your special teams player of the week. all of a sudden he's booming everything into the end zone. Now, I realize at times the way that you manage kickoffs depends on who's back there, the situation of the game and all that. Sometimes a pooch is, from a strategic standpoint, really more what you're looking for. But it seems like he's had the extra Wheaties where it comes to the leg here lately, and he's making tackles for you. You don't ever want your kicker to make tackles on kickoff plays, but not only is he making them, he's making them like he's a DB or a linebacker.
Yeah, he breaks down and make those tackles. That's not what we want out of him because we don't want them to run the ball back, but he's done a great job sticking his nose. And he had a touchdown saving tackle against Milton, but then he comes back and he kicks the ball in the end zone. He's an awesome young man that works on his craft, not all week long, but all weekend long as well. And a coach's best friend in high school is when, especially the defense coordinator standpoint, is when that kicker can kick the ball in the end zone and make a team drive 80 yards. Because at the high school level, you're going to have mistakes. You're going to have turnovers especially. So anytime you make a team drive 80 yards, it increases your chance of stopping them and winning the football game.
And you guys don't ever really have the ability to focus beyond what the challenge right in front of you is. But I know you're paying attention to what's happening elsewhere in Region 5, and you look at Kennesaw Mountain, who's played outstanding football, kind of expected because they were very good last year also. Yes. But now you've got an Osborne team for the first time in decades. That who'd have thought that Kennesaw Mountain against Osborne would be a battle of unbeatens at this point of the season. But that's what you've got there. And looming not too far off in the distance, next week, for example, is Wheeler, who's played very well.
Yeah, that matchup Friday night is going to be interesting between Kennesaw Mountain and Osborne. Both teams 5-0, both teams well coached. You know, Kennesaw Mountain's probably played a little bit of the tougher schedule.
Right.
You know, could have lost to North Paulding, so that may prepare them a little bit. But Osborne's playing great football right now. They're leading the state in scoring at over 50 points a game. And I text Coach Ironside the other day, their offense coordinator, I said, that's tough to do against air. I don't care who you're playing, you know, because people have tried to downplay who they played. Bottom line is both teams 5-0. Going into the first region game, I guarantee you Osborne's sky high thinking they can beat anybody, and Kennesaw Mountain's got a lot of great talent over there. So going to be interesting to see what happens down the road Friday night.
There's almost a Cinderella quality to the Osborne story just because they've been kind of down and out for so long. And they have that game at home, so from an emotional standpoint, that may help them a little bit. Definitely going to be interesting to see what the outcome of that one is. And obviously here in Region 5, not going to be long before we see both of those. And on top of that, Wheeler, who will be the opponent next week. Region 5, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, you never do this, but when you are into a new region, you always, well, what'd they do last year? And you glance back, and those records are a little misleading. You can kind of throw those out the window in terms of how it pertains to 2022, but it's going to be tough every week.
There's no weak sisters on our schedule. You know, used to, when I first started coaching in Cobb County, you could circle 2 or 3 teams, and you'd say, okay, we could play our JV the second half of this game. That's not the case anymore. There's great coaching, there's great players, there's great administrations that are given the resources for all these teams to be successful. So every Friday night, if you don't bring your A game, you can get beat by the team across from you on the field.
All right, well, it is North Cobb at Walton on Friday night. And again, if you don't come over to Walton for the game, and we encourage you to, it's not that far away. Heck, it's here in the county after all. But if you don't come over for the game, we encourage you to join us on our Mazda Mall of Georgia Warrior Radio Network. Of course, we post the links to that, the listen links to where you can get that link at our Warrior Radio Network Facebook page. All you got to do is go like and follow that page, and we post those links all the time. But Coach, it's going to be a fun week. Obviously, Walton, you're back on the horse this week, and it's going to be fun to see how it all turns out.
No doubt. Students, teachers, I strongly encourage you. This is a huge game, as big as we've had around here, North Cobb, in a long time. I encourage you to please be at the game. You guys make a difference. The 12th man on the field is that student section that I get to come over and see every Friday night before the game. So I challenge you to paint up again like you always do. Be at Walton early. Let's get you on TV. They always shoot the game from the home stand, so you're going to be on TV all night. We need you there to support the Warriors. So go Warriors, and we'll see you Friday night.
Also want to point out again that the Shane Queen Coaches Show is presented by Freedom Church. we are enormously thankful not only to Freedom Church, but also a shout out again to our friends at 1885 Grill who have been so supportive. And we will get back to having a live show or two, a Shane Queen Coaches Show live, that is, at Main Street Events by 1885 as this season unfolds. But also want to say thanks to Dan Node here at North Cobb, heading up this video department, and all of his students helping put the Shane Queen Coaches Show together in this form so that we come at you uninterrupted week in and week out, whether we're live on location or here on the studio set. Coach, we appreciate it as always. Go Warriors, and we'll look forward to Friday night.
Thank you guys. See you guys Friday.